Yes, I recognise parents. Jeff so yes, I'm a big
That's always fun. I enjoyed this. Really easy to get on. Once you got past that kind of like directness, which I really ended up
Good morning, folks. We might kick off. I guess before we start today, I'm going to do a little very quick introduction to Chris, who can tell us a little bit about the beautiful area where we're sitting today, and then we'll get into the formal proceedings. I might let Chris do a bit of the housekeeping before I give you a quick intro to Queensland Computers and us. My name's Jeff Wilgudis. I'm one of the owners of Queensland Computers. Before we kick off, I just want to take a moment to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and particularly on the lands that we're on today, which is the Cubby people. It's a really special place that we have here, and we should really acknowledge that these lands are and will always be those properties of the traditional owners. So I might quickly welcome up Chris to do a quick introduction to the Peregian Digital Hub. I will stand to the side for a moment while we get those things.
Morning everyone, Chris Bowden, Executive Janitor here at the Digital Hub. It's fantastic to be here and fantastic to have you all in our new AI lab, particularly our friends at Queensland Computers, Microsoft and Lenovo. It's a real special honour to be in little old Peregian Beach and have those kind of names on the same billing as Noosa Council and the Digital Hub. The Digital Hub is an initiative to build the tech and digital industry here in the Noosa Shire. And in the region. It's a Noosa Council initiative, and myself and my colleague Deirdre sitting in the middle row there run the Digital Hub. Please put your hand up, Deirdre. That's Deirdre. Yeah, and we're passionate about technology and building the tech and digital sector. And you know, is there anything more exciting right now than what's happening in the generative AI space? I am so super excited about this particular event and this product, and what this is going to do for knowledge work as a geek in this space. I'm going to be sitting, taking in every single moment of this. A little bit of housekeeping. Bathrooms are just out the door and to the left down the passage and to the right. If for any reason we need to evacuate, we'll head out to the parking lot and to the grassy area to the right, but that shouldn't be required today. I have, if anyone needs it, I have some Wi-Fi details for you if you'd like to jump on the Wi-Fi, just up the top there, if you need it.
How good is that beautiful screen?
Yeah, it's great. We will be recording today's session. Yeah, so jump on the Wi-Fi, take a quick pic if you would like of that, and we will get back to our proceedings. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you. So let's give a quick round of applause for the beautiful premises we got. You may notice I look a bit scruffy today. It's not a fashion statement. I had a mate bet me a steak dinner that he could grow a better beard than I could. And things like that are really important. So even though I forego professionalism in exchange for that, I think it's sort of worth it if I win. Follow my LinkedIn to see how that plays out. A quick introduction to Queensland Computers and I guess the general theme for today. So we're a technology provider who operates throughout Queensland with a particular focus on regional Queensland. Sunshine Coast is honorary regional Queensland. If people in Brisbane don't think it's southeast Queensland, so you definitely fall in our catchment. We got folks here on the ground and we spend a lot of time in that space. Talking about technology, AI is very sexy, and we love things that are sexy in technology because we can convince you to spend money on shit you don't really need. Now, that's not why we're here today, but that's what we tend to do with tech. What we do is we find the stuff that's very cool, we hype it up, and then we sell it to you. And that's the nature of why, if you look on the biggest 10 companies in the world, they're all technology companies, if we take out our nasty social media folks. So the purpose of today is not that, and you've probably used tools like your ChatGPTs, but AI has been in the scene for a long time. And I think the trick with something like what we're going to discuss today is we're talking productivity. We're talking general improvements in the workforce. We're talking how these things can actually make you money. And that's really important because if we just have tech, please feel free to join us, guys. It's not that formal. If we just have tech for the sake of tech, what we end up with is we're selling toys and gadgets, and toys and gadgets don't make us money. And in terms of sustainability for a business like us, obviously, if we're not demonstrating ROI, there's no point you being here. So really important that we have that view. I'm particularly excited about the event because as much as we'd like to pretend we're Copilot experts, we're most certainly not, because Copilot didn't exist formally up until about a week ago. We knew it was happening. We had some amazing conversations with Chris, and he was very dedicated to making sure that we were able to demonstrate the space. Come on in, guys. No, you're all right. No apologies necessary. And for us, there's a lot that we can learn about for the first time. So with that, I might do a quick handover to Ashley Perkins, who will take over from here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. I'm based in Brisbane, so any excuse to escape and to come up here, I take it. So it's great to be here. And to see so many people here interested in what we've been doing, what we've sort of announced publicly, only just what feels like yesterday. But you know, it's been a very rapid 10 months or so. Things have changed a lot, and I think I always have this interesting approach to different technologies where once we call things something generic, so AI, for example. But then as soon as we find something, you know, a use case for it, or it starts to become useful, we apply different names to that. So even like a large language model, it's not AI, that's a generic term. It's a large language model, that's the usability. For us, Copilot brings those things together within our products. And hopefully today, like this content is brand new. You're one of the first people to be seeing some of this content. I have pulled some things from a couple of different other decks, so you might see the styling change, but I really wanted to give you hopefully a really good understanding of what it can do in terms of productivity and sort of some of the really cool things that it's going to unlock. There's going to be a few different videos. You may have noticed, and we'll touch on it a little bit later, that Copilot for Windows launched overnight, so you can update your PCs to start using that. That should be filtering through your devices from today. And so that is a great starting point to start looking at what are the capabilities and what are the things coming through. But today we're going to mainly focus on M365 Copilot and what we are. Yeah, so, like I said, we recently unveiled Copilot. It's your digital companion spanning across all of our most used products and experiences. Copilot brings all of the Copilots from Microsoft across life and work together into one unified experience. So it's really your AI assistant at work. And we announced last week that M365 Copilot will be generally available for our M365 enterprise customers on November 1. And we've already been using M365 Copilot with thousands of different users across our early access program. And so some of those customers include Visa, General Motors, KPMG, and a few others. And so we've been starting to learn a lot of the different things of how users outside of Microsoft are using it and leveraging it. Because I think it's one thing for us to be using it and to have the benefit of almost what I kind of say, like the perfect Microsoft experience. I'm really lucky to have almost every product available, fully integrated and implemented. But we understand that customers don't always do that. There's lots of choice out there for different solutions. And so it's really interesting to see how that is applied across different customers. So M365 Copilot brings together those large language models and the data from the Microsoft Graph. And Microsoft Graph means your calendar, your emails, your chats, documents, meetings, and a whole heap of other things. So basically your digital work life. And that then integrates into those M365 apps. So it turns your words into more powerful productivity. And it's really cool. Like, it sounds silly, but it's really cool to be able to have something that can summarize a meeting that you didn't attend. To call out, not just give you notes as if you've had a note taker there present, but to go, hey, here are your action items. And here's the key takeaways out of those things. And to say, well, who spoke and when, and automatically detect what topics were in that meeting. It saves you so much time, especially when we have a lot of different, for me, I have meetings upon meetings upon meetings. And so I can't be everywhere at once. It's not the land of Harry Potter. And so that is a tool that allows me to save time, and I don't have to click through an hour-long meeting just to see a takeaway that's relevant for me. So we are integrating across all of our most popular products and most used products within there. And of course, it doesn't really mean much if it's not built upon something that's a comprehensive security, compliance, privacy, and also a responsible AI approach. And so we've done a lot of work to make sure that it is ready for businesses and enterprise. So part of M365 is our hero experience, which is M365 Chat. This is, so in May, earlier this year, when we first announced M365 Copilot, we showed you how productivity can really, and productivity and creativity can be unleashed across the core apps of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. And part of that we're building on top of is the M365 Chat Hero experience for Copilot. I've got a quick little video that will show you just sort of what we mean when it comes to M365 Chat. Aspects of that and what we make a really big point of is that you're in control of that. You can iterate, you can edit, you can say, I don't like that, just start again. And what's great is because it is iterative, it is almost like when you are working collaboratively with somebody else and you're providing feedback on the work that they've produced for you. You say, you know what, tweak that intro, or take that out, make it shorter, make it more to the point. I did a great example playing with just Bing Chat, going, look, I need to tell a friend that they don't smell good. And because I wanted to see how it would approach that. And not only did it advise me that, hey, that's a sensitive topic, I need to be conscious of that, but it also created a kind of a very soft landing to tell somebody that. And I kept on iterating and going, you know what, make it more to the point and shorter. And it would guide me, but it would come back and it would fine tune to exactly what I was looking for. But sometimes even using that, and that's just kind of a more extreme example, but it is also something where it can serve as a great jumping off point to start off, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I procrastinate the start of something because I just don't know where to start, or it's just taking that first step to work out, okay, how do I, writing that first sentence is so hard sometimes. And so just by saying, hey, I'm looking to write something about this, or we're looking to host an event here, can you put together an idea of what that might look like based on these chats or this meeting? It's a great, awesome, amazing starting point that you can build upon. And the more you use Copilot, the more deeply it reflects the most subtle aspects of your work and your team as well. So like I said, it's almost like having somebody attend all of your meetings with you, or even for you, for the ones that you skip. And then also you can do things like read your emails and highlight things that you've missed from that as well. Excuse me. And it will also know what is in every single file. So it can recall much faster than you probably can, freeing you to focus on things that are important to you and the things that you're trying to achieve. And so it's one thing to talk about, but we're going to show you some videos because we're not quite ready. I don't have full access to be able to show you complete demos at the moment, but we do have some videos on it to show you just exactly what that experience is looking and we'll be looking at once we get to November 1st. So we talked about chat, so we'll just go a little bit and have a bit of a close.
Introducing Microsoft 365 Chat, a powerful new capability in Microsoft 365 to solve your most complex problems at work. Let's say you're a marketer at a national chain of home improvement stores, and you need to get the latest on the store opening. You start your day with Copilot, asking what's hot in your inbox today. It does some thinking and gives you an overview of the most pressing items. Great. Looks like the new store opening plans could use your attention. Let's dive in deeper there. Copilot combs through all your recent emails, chats, documents, and meetings, whether you attended them or not, to get you up to speed in moments. It didn't just summarize a single document. It knew what sources to pull from and what information to extract from each. Next, you need to do some market research. Let's say you want details on square footage and the proximity of competitors to your new location. M365 Chat scours the web, and within seconds, it finds everything you're looking for. And it includes references, so you can easily fact-check the results. You're curious, how does this stack up against the other stores you're opening in the past year? Copilot figures out which stores you mean, crunches the numbers, and gives you the answer. Next on your to-do list, finalize the date and speaker for the opening event. You missed the last meeting, and this might have come up in the conversation. Copilot's got you covered, getting you up to speed in seconds. Looks like it was a dynamic discussion, and it's your responsibility to make a final decision. To do that, you need to understand all the factors at play, including the implications they have on your grand opening timeline. Copilot extracts the relevant details and puts them in an organized table, which helps bring the full picture into view. You're not seeing a clear answer, so you ask it to recommend the best date and speaker based on the constraints discussed. It not only understands the constraints, it thinks through the options to help solve your problem. There you go. Now you have a clear recommendation, so you can make the call and notify the team. Now that you've got the opening date, you've got to get customers excited. Time to write a blog post. You point Copilot to the right files and ask it to tune the message to the audience. Note the amount of detail, such as asking it to pick the top 5 things and make them prominent. Here it goes. Copilot gets to work. Okay, now you've got a blog post. This store will be the first to unveil your new home improvement concierge service, and you need a catchy tagline. Let's generate some options. This is great for when you've got a case of writer's block. Here we go. These look pretty good. Lastly, you want to highlight the impressive retail experience of the new store manager. Best source for that? LinkedIn. Copilot generates an updated blog for you that includes the new additions. Now, the opening is just around the corner, and you've got to send an email to the team so they have everything they need to push this over the finish line. Now, one of the amazing things about Copilot is you don't need to worry about things like punctuation, spelling, or being super structured. You can give it a total brain dump. You could spend the next hour putting together an email that outlines the key details, but with Copilot, you're never more than a few seconds away from a solid first draft. There was a great quote in the store walkthrough video that you want to include, but you don't remember where you last saw it or have time to search for it, let alone re-watch it to find the quote. Based on your quick description, Copilot finds the exact video you're thinking of, extracts the quote you wanted, and plugs both the quote and the video into your email. So, you like the draft, but it doesn't sound like you. Introducing Sound Like Me in Outlook. Now you can personalize any email to match your unique style and voice. And check this out. It even knows your signature. M365 Chat is a whole new way to work.
That's pretty cool, hey? Like that, and it's things that it's taken what would have taken hours or days or even just waiting for the next meeting to then go, oh no, we talked about that. You go, oh, okay, all right, I'll have to go back and look at it. So it's doing that and bringing that all together. And that is when we talk about utilizing the Microsoft Graph in addition to the large language models on top of the apps is where it's not just about having a large language model. It's not about having, ChatGPT sort of doing stuff for you. It's bringing in and connecting a whole heap of other things into that. And that is where that graph is really important. And also on top of that, and we'll touch on it a little bit later, is obviously the mindfulness of sensitivity of that being your organization's data as well. So how can we protect that and make sure, give you the peace of mind and also ensure that it's not being used to be trained on the open AI models, for example. So the next part of M365 Copilot is the Copilot Lab. So it's there to help everyone learn to work iteratively with AI and to get the most out of M365 Copilot. And so just as customers turn to us for the shift in flexible work, they're also relying on us to build those work habits to leverage and particularly in this new era of productivity. And we do want to help. So with Copilot Lab, you can learn how to turn a good prompt into a great one. Share your favorite prompts with coworkers as well as getting inspired to learn, how to work together in a new way. So once it's generally available, Copilot Lab will be integrated into M365 Copilot, and it will be accessible, of course, via our website or to all M365 Copilot users.
Introducing Copilot Lab to help everyone learn to work iteratively with AI and get the most out of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Copilot Lab is a place to experiment, to learn the art and science of prompting, how to turn a good prompt into a great one. Share your favorite prompts with coworkers and get inspired as we all learn to work in a whole new way together.
Bing Chat, yeah. And it's sort of that first one was, well, what can I ask it, right? And you're looking, well, what can it do for me? And so that's where the lab really comes in to help users of different levels of technology proficiency understand what they can do, because obviously if you think you can only just ask a simple thing and that's all you do with it, you're not going to be getting the maximum out of it. And so it's a place to learn and to share and to help expand, sort of, particularly when we're so early. I feel that probably in a few years, most people will be quite good at just understanding what a prompt is, and kind of like how we learned how to search on a search engine. There's one way to ask a question, and there's other ways to get a more desirable or the exact answer that you're looking for. And so I think that's the process that users are going to go through with Copilot and large language models in general. And then Copilot really becomes to expand once we start integrating with other third-party plugins. An example that was shown a lot is around Adobe Express, for example, of being able to link not just within our apps, but also work across other apps too. And so we've got a little bit of a just to show that.
Microsoft 365 Chat supports external plugins, enabling users to connect to external tools without switching apps. Let's say you need to book a trip. You can do all that with just natural language. You want to match the itinerary of a colleague? M365 Chat can pull those details directly from an email they sent you. You can then ask it to help you book the same itinerary. Here, it uses the Citric Easy App plugin from Amadeus, which makes travel booking a breeze. It generates an itinerary for you, where you can select from other flights or view the final details to confirm the specifics of the trip before purchasing. Simply click Book and you're done. M365 Chat supports third-party plugins from any data source, so you can stay in your flow of work without needing to change screens.
When different tools, some of them don't have great interfaces. Like, particularly, I think, like the booking tool that we use internally is not very user-friendly. It feels like it's about 20 years ago. It kind of works, but it's a third-party tool. But yeah, but if you can just ask it to do it, and it knows all of your travel rules and everything that's set up within that third party, it's great, makes things a breeze. So this, being able to follow a meeting, I think, is probably one that most of you in this room will probably really actually quite like. And most users will find quite useful. I touched on it previously, where if you're double booked, you can't be in two places at once, and you don't necessarily want to sit through an hour-long meeting or however long that meeting is just to go, well, what was that one mention that was important to me, or did they even say anything that was of use to me? I think we've been in plenty of meetings where you turned up, you go, oh, that's actually, I didn't really need to be there. So having follow a meeting means that you can focus on other things, attend the other more important meeting, but still not be
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here, you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with another meeting you're already attending. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like, summarize this meeting, or, are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting.
Something that I've personally been using a bit at the moment. I wish I could show you, but some of the stuff is sensitive, so we can't. But it is, like the first time I used it, I made the offhand joke because I was in a different meeting going, oh yeah, we talked about that. And I said, oh, let me go see if I can find that. And I made the offhand joke, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to have AI together? Like, because we knew that feature was coming. And it happened, and this is not a joke, but it happened that feature had been rolled out to us in between that time. Like, I didn't know that it had been rolled out for us internally. And then so when I jumped into that meeting recording, I'm like, oh, it's there. And so I was able to just pull that information straight out of that. Other cool things is things that, like with Sales Copilot, you can measure sentiment as well. So if something's shared and people say, people share, opinions and comments and things like that, it will also highlight that, hey, maybe this was received really positively, or maybe this language was a little bit negative. So it's actually something you can reflect on and look at after the fact to go, well, how was that received based on, the language that was used? Because sometimes you might not pick up on that at the time, but you can go through and sort of see where that's caught out. So that's also another really interesting aspect of that. So and we're jumping between videos, but hopefully the video is useful to show what we're talking about. And yeah, cool. And hopefully at a point, maybe at a future event, we can show some more live interactive to show how that works. But yeah, so hopefully at the moment, but with Copilot in Word, we've already seen a lot of the stuff with particularly the Copilot chat. But now we're diving into the apps specifically and what they can do. So Word with Copilot can start to transform that process or that creative process that you have. So if you've ever used the designer in the past, particularly in PowerPoint, Copilot can now start to use not only just incorporate custom graphics, but it can also use the context of your content to propose stock visuals within chat as well. And then you can upload and customize those images as well for a bit more of a personal touch. So we're integrating tools like DALL-E to create those images for you and to have those things generated on the fly that are relevant to this area, in addition to some of the other things that Copilot can do.
When it comes to creativity, sometimes getting started is the hardest part. But how about when you want to add a visual to a text-heavy document? Now, with the new Designer integration in Copilot, you can effortlessly bring your ideas to life visually. Designer uses the context of your document to propose some visuals to choose from, and you can make it more personal by uploading your own photos. Within moments, you can create a custom graphic right in your document. Designer is the latest addition to our family of Microsoft 365 consumer apps. Powered by new generative AI, it allows you to create and edit visuals, giving you everything you need to make your project pop. Within moments, Designer quickly transitions your idea into a custom graphic with options to choose from. Once you select a design, you can customize your graphic further with new generative AI image editing features. Need to erase that unwanted object in the background? Like perhaps someone or something that takes away from the true star of your photo. Just hover and click. And sometimes your picture may not fill the full frame, but now you can expand any image to really make it shine. Done. You can even add an entirely new object. Or maybe you just want to mix it up a bit. By leveraging the DALL-E 3 image editing model, it's as simple as using your imagination and your words. What used to require specialized software and photo editing skills can now be done in just a few clicks.
So it's pretty cool. So you don't have to be an expert in Photoshop either. So it means that it sort of makes it accessible for a lot more people as well. So who's used Excel? Who uses Excel almost every day? Yeah. Either you love it or you hate it, right? It depends on how big the Excel sheet is, I think, sometimes. So Copilot with Excel allows you to analyze and visualize data, like being a data analyst without being a data analyst. So you can use Copilot to really leverage the tools that are powerful within Excel. To uncover things, you can create professional visualizations, you can generate forecasts, you can save time sorting through things and calling out things. You can use Python within Excel and quickly add even a formula column to highlight key data. And you can just use natural language with that. It's kind of like with Power Automate as well. You can use natural language without needing to know the explicit, specific formula or structure that you need to do that.
Python and Excel brings the world of Excel and Python analytics together, and now Copilot is here to help you along the way. With the new PY function, you can use powerful Python libraries right within your Excel workbook to create compelling plots and visualizations, train machine learning models, and other advanced analytics. With Copilot, you don't need to be an expert. All you need are simple prompts. Want to estimate your future sales? Copilot can generate forecasts using one of the multiple Python libraries available through Python and Excel. You can then better understand and visualize the data by requesting a chart. With Copilot, you can create Python visualizations like multiplots to see how variables relate to each other. Or use powerful data cleansing techniques, such as regex, to apply consistent formatting to your data. Or apply machine learning models. Copilot brings the rich capabilities of Python and Excel to your fingertips.
You start to see how the Copilot lab really starts to come in handy because of the breadth across all of the products shows just how much and how deep you can go within each product. And so that's where the lab, particularly maybe as you encounter something, go, oh, maybe how can I use Copilot to leverage that? That's where lab really starts to come in handy of. And maybe not the first time, but every subsequent time after that, you start to become more efficient with that. So we've seen a lot of different things, and then we land with what we call the semantic index for Copilot. So this is something where when we start rolling out the search capabilities, which is a pretty critical part for for Copilot, and especially to E3 and E5 customers as well, when you're handling huge amounts of data. Microsoft, for example, there's a couple 100,000 people that work within that. It's a lot of data. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of teams, and so there's a lot of data to process. It's kind of like a search engine on its own, the power that's needed to find these things, and particularly when we have Copilot that we want to find things within an instant. That's a lot of work across. Think about your organization. How many people, if they're doing a search at once, how critical to have good search performance is. And so semantic index helps you understand the intent behind prompts and commands. It can allow you to produce more relevant, transparent results as well, and it lets you phrase questions and commands by concept using that natural language that we are striving to be able to just use. So it's something where this is going to be critical as you start to prepare to incorporate Copilot, that you're getting your data organized and ready for that. Because, for example, some things within your organization, so let me ask a quick question. Who's utilizing the privacy tags and the confidentiality tags within M365? So one hand, yeah, cool. So if you're not familiar with that, it means that you can automatically classify and categorize data based on its sensitivity. Is it customer data that you only want a specific team to be able to see and can't be taken, whether it's an employee leaving or inadvertently shared through a Teams meeting, through a screen share? It's those things where if it's marked as critically confidential, well, that means that data won't be shared even through a screen share. It will be blanked out. And it's utilizing and taking advantage of those classifications to make sure that something that might be hidden by obscurity right now because it's sitting on somebody's SharePoint, that only 2 people access, doesn't then get surfaced by every employee within there because they're utilizing the search to find things within the organization. So it is a little bit of homework to do before Copilot comes, but it's something where it means that not only is your data structured and properly secured within your organization to the people that only need to be seeing it, but it also means that from external as well. It means that nobody can just take that.
Can I jump up 2 seconds?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to jump in while we're on a key point there. So the biggest issue we see at the coalface working with businesses is you're not technology companies. And some of you are, but we are a technology company, and I didn't put my hand up just then, right? So that's a pretty big concern. I should have just so it looked good. But the issue with things like this, or not even the issue, is the operational maturity level of your organization with technology is probably, you're looking at all this stuff and going, holy shit, how cool is that? And I'm right. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I sit there and I go, that is going to save me so much time. And then you're going to go back to your office with your slow old computers and your wrong licensing on the wrong users with your poor security setup, and you're going to be busy and stressed, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of this stuff. So really important fundamentally here that when you start looking at things like this and go, firstly, what if my opposition uses this and I don't? Because if I'm using this and you're not, I'm going to crush you. If we're in the same business and we're using everything else being equal, obviously, we all think we've got the best products, but these are tools that are going to make a huge difference. We're not there organizationally in terms of tech. And the biggest challenge with something like Microsoft, you mentioned E3, E5. So what Ashley's referring to is the level of licensing you've bought for your Microsoft. you buy even the most basic license, there's a swag of Microsoft tools that come with it. You're not using them. That's the truth. Like, you're probably not. Some people, it's Teams, and you go, wow, where was this all my life? But you've been paying for it for 5 years. It's part of your licensing. You've only just rolled it out. So really critical as we keep going, and sorry to interrupt, but I just thought while we were talking about that privacy, as we keep going through here, it's important to understand what your baseline, what am I already paying for that I'm not using? Because that's a really good question to ask yourself. And how am I actually going to use this stuff knowing that Barry's 3 years off retirement and really is not going to get on board when we come back excited? Because we do this, right? We go to these events and we go, this shit's cool, we're going to roll it out. And then you ask 3 people and they say, yeah, super busy and our computers are not even working at the moment, our server's down and we just got hacked. And then you lose all your gusto, you sit back in the corner and go, oh, screw it, I'll just go back to what I was doing. So really important to start thinking about those, what do I need to do, what is my individual roadmap? And again, this is what we do as a company, but if you've got good relationships with IT people, these are conversations you should be having because it's no longer about the tech. Like I said, tech's cool, tech's sexy, we love selling it to you, but it's where the tech meets productivity, meets your business. And if that's not intersecting, you've got tech off looking cool and being sexy, and you've got business not being as productive as it could be. So
it's a fantastic point, and it comes back to some of the slides a while ago of going, everything that you do and utilize within your organization is what shapes your Copilot experience. So if you're not using Teams, for example, you're leaving a lot of capability on the table, and you're already paying for it. Same with a whole swag of different things. So it comes back, and even, I'll see if I can show you. So at the top, you can see the sensitivity tags. That's the example that I'm talking about right now. So this is confidential. I can say that it's highly confidential, that it's only for FTE, extended Microsoft people, or recipients only. So only the people that I send this to can view it. So even if it's sitting on a SharePoint file, nobody else outside of who I share it with can see it. It can be public, it can be confidential, it can be, again, different levels and grind downs that I can do. Highly confidential means that typically I can't share that through like a screen share. It won't let me. So the perfect example is customer data, right? That is something where you don't want random people having access to, or you don't want to accidentally share that data in a Teams call with a different customer. That is, so it allows you to make sure that not only, like I said, within your organization, you're protecting the data and making sure that it's only relevant and visible by the people that can see it, but it's also for anybody that you're interacting with outside, or even employees that do leave. Particularly in, when we're working more and more remotely, we're not in the office all of the time. If somebody leaves and they never come back in the office again, there's a device sitting there, right? So how can we also, if you're utilizing modern management, there are steps that you can take to essentially make that device no longer relevant to that particular person after they leave.
Does that work if you use like a not SharePoint to hold all your files? So if we use Dropbox and Google Drive, does that work across those as well?
So the file protections that you apply, the policies to the documents itself, yes. But in terms of other things, it comes down to the platform that you're using. But the document itself, if you mark it as highly confidential, it will still apply to the same rules, no matter where it's stored. Because it could be stored on my PC, it could be on an external drive.
Yeah, right.
It could be on a network share. And I don't know that curiosity gets the best of people and they poke around network shares when they find a folder. I've done it a few times. Okay, what can I see? I did it at school a lot, and that's how we'd find really cool things. So, but yeah, so having that is really useful outside of, obviously you're going to get the best experience if you leverage everything that you're pretty much already paying for. But yeah, those protections still work. So all of this is built upon the cloud, and whether it's powering the large language models, it's powering Copilot. For us, it's one of the biggest differentiators for how AI for us drives innovation across organizations or entire organizations who are our customers. So the two primary ways in which we do that is obviously the way that we leverage the cloud is through this is rapidly accelerating productivity and capability of employees by leveraging that transformational AI. We're providing that and allowing them to gain access to that. And it's been built into every Microsoft Cloud solution. And of course, the tools that we're delivering in services that are needed to build intelligent apps. So if you're developing internal apps yourself to leverages, you can use those services within Azure as well. But it is, so we're built upon, and it can influence across everywhere from security, remote management. There's so many aspects which the cloud is leveraged. And even on a device level, we approach security from a chip to the cloud philosophy of from the instant the power button is pressed by the user, there's a million things happening behind the scenes that the user doesn't see. That is ensuring that the operating system or the firmware that the device has is what it's meant to be there and hasn't been modified by somebody else, a third party. If you've left the device or if it's intercepted whilst it's in transit to the user from the factory, all the way through to if they lose that device, having the cloud, having the device using modern management, for example, with Autopilot or Intune, means that if a device is lost, the downtime that employee has is the time it takes for them to get another device in their hands. And they can pick up exactly from where they left off from. So that's where the cloud for us really influences and touches everything that we do to offer so many different benefits into not just from security, but all the way through to productivity. And of course, for us, we definitely believe that the development and deployment of AI has to be guided by an ethical framework. So we have 6 core principles that should be guiding this work around AI, and 4 core principles of fairness, reliability, safety, privacy, security, and inclusiveness. That's underpinned by the 2 foundational principles of transparency and accountability. And so these are things that we know that our relationship with you is built upon trust. We want to make sure and want to ensure that you also understand that your data remains your data. It doesn't become part of, it doesn't train an open AI model. It respects the privacy and security policies that you set up within your organization. And so it works works with you, with how your organization is set up and how you're leveraging that. And we want to make sure that even when it comes to copyright commitment, these Copilot is going to change how we work. And whilst AI-generated content has the potential to be really revolutionary across multiple different industries around the world, of course, there are concerns that come up around like IP infringement. And so for us to sort of provide confidence behind that, we have a commitment towards our existing intellectual property, indemnity support to commercial. We've extended that to Copilot and services, including Bing Chat Enterprise, and it builds upon the previous things that we've done around these commitments. So a really good example is that if a third party sues a commercial customer for copyright infringement for using Microsoft's Copilot or the output that they generate, we will defend that customer and pay for the amount of any adverse judgments or settlements that result from that lawsuit. So as long as the customer has used the guardrails and the content filters that we have built into our products. So that is, I think we make a very strong commitment around that, and to provide that's, we take that very seriously, and we're very conscious of those concerns around that side as well. So some of the,
I was just going to say is obviously that's from a Microsoft standpoint, but not all AI, like not all generative AI or other types of AI. I guess just so that people are aware that if you're punching into the Google,
if you're using Bard, we can't help you there. that lies with them. So if you're utilizing Copilot the way that it's intended, utilizing those tools, that's where our commitment backs you within that. So if we look at, well, what's some data around the productivity boost that it has had? Well, GitHub Copilot, who knows what GitHub is? Cool, yeah, pretty familiar with it. Cool. So GitHub Copilot we've rolled out, and it's a way to help developers with developing, and doing it in ways that expands the capability, speeds up how they can do that. And our data from GitHub with that Copilot tool, we've unlocked productivity for a lot of people. So among developers who use GitHub Copilot, 88% say that they are more productive. 74% say that they can focus more on satisfying work, let the menial stuff be handled by something else. And 77% say that it helps them spend less time searching for information or examples. I don't know about you, but if you've ever done a little bit of development, a little bit of coding, half your time is spent looking for examples, you're searching for, because you might not be 100% sure of how to do it, but somebody else surely has and they've shared that. And so with GitHub Copilot, not only is it helping you find those examples, but it also helps you navigate around the licensing and the attribution that's really important with that. It's not just about taking code and utilizing. We want to make sure that people that have generated that are obviously acknowledged for that as well, or you know where that's coming from as well. I don't recommend taking code from anywhere and just blindly implementing it and then hitting the button on production and going, take it. So that is just some of the stuff across GitHub where people are utilizing more and more and has been out in the wild for a little while. And then, and this is where working with Queensland Computers really comes in, with making sure that if you're looking to get started on that journey of what Copilot is, there are a few things that you can essentially do. So whether it's if you're utilizing Dynamics 365, Copilot, or even Power Platform, there's Copilot built into that. You can start utilizing that now. If you've got developers, they can start leveraging GitHub Copilot now. But when it comes to M365 Copilot, now's the perfect time to be making sure that you've got voice above is trying to cut in. So we want to make sure that you have the right foundation there. So whether it is making sure that you have the right licenses in place, making sure that your organization is set up appropriately when it comes to how you're handling that information. So doing the foundational homework there to make sure that when it does launch, and if you want to jump in head first, that you're ready for that. And you don't spend a lot of time going, wait, what did we just unleash within the organization? This is a very powerful tool. So it isn't something where you just hit a switch and see what happens. It is something that we are telling our customers to make sure that you've done your foundational homework, that your organization is ready, because organizations up until this point haven't been working with this in mind. So this is a significant change. And so this is something to be mindful of. And of course, there's plenty of data that's going to be available as an admin to see what that utilization is also like. You can start to see if they've tried it for the first time, if they've come back to it, and even if they've kept using it. So there's different things that you can leverage, because obviously with licensing, it is something that you'll want to be mindful of. And so it is something where you can measure and sort of see how that adoption is going across your organization. And then so when it comes to pricing, we've announced that a little while ago. So it is $30 USD per user per month. And that will be at that, from that 1st of November general availability timeframe. So before we jump in, I've added a little extra section onto this one based off some of the Windows updates that we've announced last week and that have officially come out today. But essentially, this is our holistic view of Copilot, Bing Chat Enterprise, and M365 Copilot. Who within the organization has already enabled Bing Chat Enterprise? Yep, one, couple hands. So if you've got M365 Business Standard, Premium, E3, E5, it's something that you can jump in and turn on for free. And it means that that data is protected. It's not shared anywhere else. It's kept within your organization. The context is kept within your organization. So that is something which I highly recommend go out and do today if you haven't. We will automatically turn that on eventually. But if you want to, if your employees are already starting to play around with that, if they're playing around with Bing Chat, turn it on. It means that it sort of starts to address some of those concerns of around that data privacy and how that data is being handled for your organization. Because we don't want that information going out to, you know, and not going to places where you don't want it to be going. So that's sort of our lineup. Microsoft Copilot has been launched as part of Windows, and this is where we sort of lead into just touching on if you're already utilizing Windows 11 Pro. For us, 11 Pro and Windows 11 devices offer the best level of security of any version of Windows. It means greater protection for your organization, your employees, and your customers. I touched on it a little bit before of how we have that chip to the cloud approach and how, unlike before, even security features that were present, we're turning on by default. Not only are we happy with the performance of the devices, but we're also happy with how those security features function, and it's not going to have an adverse effect on your battery or your performance or anything like that. So things like secure boot, TPM, it's those things where if you don't understand it, that's great. You shouldn't have to interact with that at all. It all happens behind the scenes. The only thing that you worry about is logging in with your face or a fingerprint or a PIN, and then logging into your other services. That really should be for your users, the extent of that security experience. The rest of it is happening behind the scenes. So just to touch on what we have here, we've faced a lot of different changes. The way that threats have evolved rapidly, particularly throughout the pandemic, we've been really conscious of, and the way that we implemented Windows 11, and the reason why we did Windows 11 was to better respond to that. And so even with the ideas around of having that security within organizations, it's also laying the foundations for AI and having that experience really be quite smooth on devices of today and of course devices of tomorrow. So for us, that multi-layered security approach means that you can have more security at a lower cost. You can start to consolidate some of those licenses that you're paying for, because no doubt there's probably a few of you out there that you're paying for one thing from one provider and another from us, and you could probably have a look at that and start to consolidate some of those things. But so when we have that, we have the ability to have, so if you've ever gone from one version of Windows to another, or if you had discussions with different people, the IT team, app compatibility, who's had app compatibility come up as a concern at any point? Yeah. So with Windows 10 being built upon, or with Windows 11 being built upon the same core as Windows 11, Windows 11 being built on the same core as Windows 10, it means that not only are we providing the same great base layer, but we're also carrying compatibility, and we take that really seriously. So at the moment, we're sitting at about 99.7% app compatibility. So essentially, if you're running it on Windows 10, it will run on Windows 11. If not, if you have a really obscure app that hasn't been developed for X number of years, or it's something that you've developed in-house, we have a program called App Assure. So App Assure will have engineers from Microsoft work with the developers of the app, or if those app developers don't exist anymore, we'll find new ones to resolve that compatibility with that app. So as long as you have it working on Windows 10, we'll help you get it working on Windows 11. But we're confident enough that of the millions of apps that we've already evaluated, we're sitting at a 0.3% that are compatible, which is pretty unlucky if you count that. But we're there to we're there to help you with that. But this quick little video is going to be a preview of what we've launched overnight, essentially, and what we discussed last week at our event. So who's using Windows 11 at the moment? That's okay if you're not. A few hands, huh? Good number of hands. So have you also noticed little things like your start menu picks up on things that you've collaborated with people? Yeah, it's some of the smarts that we're even building within that I find really cool. So if I've got an upcoming meeting, it will not only tell me who I've got that meeting coming up with, it will also surface files that I might not have looked at that topic for a month. And it will still go, oh, hey, here's these files that might be relevant to you. And I go, oh, that's great because I've got 15 minutes to get up to speed. So it's great for when things that, you have a monthly catch up, you have a monthly scene, and you want to sort of be brought up to speed of what's happened, who's done things. So even, if I show you quickly. So in here, not only can I see things that I've edited, things that people have been sharing with me, I can also look at, so in here, when I have a meeting pop up, this is where things will appear for me. And that icon at the bottom where the briefcase is, it will show and it'll turn into a little calendar icon. So I can see people that I've recently interacted with, people within my organization, popular searches within Microsoft. So what are other employees looking for at the moment? What's the trending things? It's kind of useful when you've got a big organization. Relevant files, and then even who uses lots of acronyms within it? Yeah, a lot. And even for me, I've had a long history with Microsoft, and there's still things that I'm learning about today. Like I just go, they say something, I have no idea what that is. So it's really handy down here. So it actually pulls acronyms from your organization. So it will either give you something you can learn, or you can even search for acronyms and understand what they are. So it kind of builds that intelligence over time, which can be really useful. If you are sitting in a meeting, somebody says something, you're like, what does that mean? It's kind of like your little cheat sheet for that. So there's lots of different sort of benefits. So it, little tweaks here and there, little features that really add up. Who uses an external monitor in the desk or at home? Yeah. So if you're like me previously, I'd just, I'd arrange my windows exactly how I'd want them, and then I'd unplug to go somewhere else, and then I'd come back, I have to spend time rearranging every single window exactly how I had it before. With docking and undocking on Windows 11, it means that when I unplug my display, I go to my meeting or go sit down somewhere else, when I come back, it will throw those same applications. If I've left them open, it will throw them back up onto the display exactly where I left it. So it's just one little step of, it reduces that cognitive load of, because you're sitting down to do something, right? And how many times you've been distracted because then you end up doing one thing and then you go, oh, I'm gonna go check this, I'm gonna go do that. And then you go, wait, what did I sit down to do? So it's those things where can we, it's little things of removing the little blockers, the little menial tasks that we can look after and just have happen automatically and just let you get back into your flow, reduce those distractions. So lots of little things. We've improved the single sign-on experience. So if you're using your face, if you're using a fingerprint, using your PIN, that single sign-on, as long as any other service that you're using within your organization or even for other external things, because it supports the latest security identity standards, FIDO2, it means that you can use the same hardware-based security that's built into your device to log into those services as well. So you don't have to keep typing your password a million times. You can essentially, like I've gotten to the point where I've had to reset my password because I haven't used it in so long. I hardly, with multi-factor, I basically don't use the password anymore. And so, which is great because if I can't remember it, sure as hell, the person trying to steal it isn't going to get it. If the password doesn't exist, it can't be stolen. And so there's lots of different things in that user experience that we're building that seem small, but have a big impact over time. So we've already talked about it. Essentially, for the update today that has come out, it's available. You can leverage it. Bing Chat Enterprise, turn that on. It means that you start to have that influence part of it. So on the side, you'll see that little Bing Chat Enterprise logo up there. That means you know that your data is protected within that and it stays within the organization. Kind of in the way, but it also shows it at the bottom as another reaffirm. So it's a different way of just going, well, it's there for you, turn it on, use it. But essentially, that, thank you. It's a lot of stuff. So hopefully it's been useful. We'll have more and more, as we get closer to general availability, there'll be more stuff coming out. We'll have a better chance later on to have some actual demos to show you how that works in real life. Because seeing a video is fantastic, it's great, but it's another thing to actually sit down and play with it yourself. But thank you. We'll do some questions, I think, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just with the monthly charges on that, can you pick which users get the Copilot?
Yeah. So you don't have to roll it out to everybody all at once. You can pick and choose that based on, because look, there are going to be employees within organizations that you might think, oh, they're not really going to use it or it's not really relevant for them. And so we'd rather give that to another user that's really going to get a lot of value out of it. Eventually I see, and it's happened internally because it's been rolling out in rings, and the moment one person or one team sees it, everybody else is hounding everybody else to get it. Because even if you think about a receptionist, for example, taking a lot of phone calls, doing a lot of meeting appointment, like there's lots of stuff where Copilot might not first go, well, they're not really, they're not a salesperson, not a thing, they're not an information worker, but then you realize that, oh, that actually could be really handy, because Outlook would actually help process and flow, churn through all of the thousands of emails they get at the front. So I think, yeah, at the start, absolutely, but I think what you'll probably find it's something that more and more people want to use, because just those little productivity things all add up big time.
And rolling it out in rings is a really good method for
Absolutely.
FOMO.
Yeah.
For the adoption process.
And look, we always roll things out in rings. It's something where if you're using modern management for your devices, even when it comes to updates, you can roll out, so you can roll out updates in stages in rings. So you can have it automatically push out to a small subset and manage and measure all the performance of that. Does it work? Sometimes, look, as much as we want to release a perfect update, sometimes it's not perfect with the configuration of which you use. It happens. There's over a billion devices. It's bound to happen. But it means that you can release it in rings, and if it goes, yep, it's worked great, we haven't seen any adverse performance issues, then roll it out to the next stage. And it's tested for a few more people. And then it rolls out to the rest of the organization. As long as it sort of hits and it satisfies that there haven't been any issues found. So we kind of operate in rings a lot. We do it for rolling out new features, we do it for rolling out updates and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a good approach.
Is there any trial period at an enterprise level for this add-on? Like what Power Automate rolled out with like a 90-day trial period at an enterprise level? That sort of thing?
we haven't announced anything around that. I'd probably look closer towards the general availability of it as part of it. Because even with early access, it's paid.
Yeah, so probably the comment around that more than anything is the integration, the effort that you're going to put to integrate this stuff properly is going to cost you so much more than the licensing.
Yeah,
shit sales pitch, I know, but that by the time you get down the road of going, I'm going to use it, I don't think we're going to be at that point. So I think what we find is that when the buy-in that you need to have as an organisation to go, this is for me, it happens before you're going to spend any money on that. And yeah, I think the setup because what people go is just give me a license, and then they go, this is shit, it doesn't do anything. You're like, yeah, okay, because it's like Teams actually. Teams is a great example. Yeah. People use Teams as a chatbot. They're like, oh great, now I don't have to use, one of the other 5 different ones out there. And you're like, if you're using Teams as a chatbot, you got ripped off because it's not a chat program. It's a collaboration tool. So what I would say is, reverse engineer it and start with what great looks like and find an example. Get a demo of when this is fully utilized, what does it look like, rather than seeing how Bob uses it and going, we want that as well. But I think the licensing cost will be fairly minimal.
And look, and it's part of that experience that you go through to make sure that you're leveraging what you're already paying for really well. I think you'll go on a journey of just seeing how having things properly work across each other and going through that effort. You'll also be a lot more satisfied with what you're using right now. See people paying double for chat collaboration stuff, or they'll use Teams for one thing and then use another platform for the calls, and it's like, what? That's I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
You get tasks in Teams, like with tasks.
Yeah, so for us, like I said before, like we're really lucky. Like I get to experience sort of kind of like that gold standard Microsoft, because we create it, we implement it, we use it to the maximum. And so, yeah, it is something that we have to be conscious of, that not every customer uses it the same way. But particularly with Copilot, you want to be leveraging it, getting your value for money out of it.
The example that I would reference there that I think is really relatable is when you talk about values, and if your values are just written on the wall or just a basic level that people barely understand, or can they repeat it, how well do they know it, how well can they language it, and if the values are lived every day and you're reminding your employees about what those values are, what it means, what are the behaviours and actions that support those values. Same thing with Teams. If people are like, oh yeah, that's Teams, it's over there, it's on the side, it's on the wall, it's just a headline.
Yeah.
And they don't actually understand the full purpose of it and what are the behaviours and actions that support using it to its full functionality. I would be interested to survey the room as to at what level do you use Teams in the moment in your organisation. So who in this room uses Teams within, as Jeff just referenced, tasks, uses it with meetings, with boards, with those additional functionalities more than just the chat in your organisation? So less than half the room. This is the important part that I was wanting to communicate to people today, is if you aren't using Teams to that full functionality, that's where we need to start getting you and your organisations to using that more fully. You're already paying for it, using it more fully, so that then when this is implemented in November, you are ready and raring, and your team members, because getting that human change is a hard part. You can adopt the software, you can put it on your computer, it can live and die there. It's the people behind the screen that's going to make the difference to the value and the productivity in your organisation.
Which leads to what sort of education and information support do you have to educate your staff about the capabilities of these products?
Well, that's where the lab comes in. Yeah, so that's where the lab is. We can explore the capabilities of it. You can also, another thing is what happens is a lot of discoverability, and then kind of like Instagram, like if you're sharing TikTok or Reels, you know, you go, oh, this is cool, send it. And that's where you can leverage that with people within your team and go, hey, this is something that I used really well, here's what I did. Because you'll see some people within your organization go head first and just bury themselves and get really, you know, and use it to its absolute maximum. And others will be afraid or they don't know what to ask for it. And so that's why we created the lab to go, there is that resource that you can take yourself through, or you can have people share stuff, or as you encounter things, if you're doing something in Excel and somebody mentioned, maybe I can do it, okay, you can actually go and look at that. So that is that central resource of what really covers those capabilities, and in a way that's conscious that not everybody is super proficient in, you know, in technology.
And I guess from an organisational perspective, I spend a lot of my time working with educators in schools. We love teachers, we need them, but they're not innovators. And when we talk to schools about it, we draw a standard deviation curve on the board and say you've got early adopters, you've got laggards, and you've got the populace. And then I go and work with the startup community who are innovators, and it's exactly the same curve with exactly the same distribution. So what we know is that you're going to have that within your organisation. The change management is super, super tricky. What we do as leaders tends to be not giving people a safe place to fail and learn. Kids are good. Students in school versus teachers, give me a group of students any day of the week, because students will break things, quite literally, but in a good way too. So I think it's really important that rather than us go hard at it and go, we are 100% using this tomorrow, Bob, you better be up to speed. Ignore Bob. Bob's our guy that's 3 years from retirement, remember? We're going to let him leave. It's not worth your effort. It's going to cost you a lot of money for you to convince us or you to get him on board. We use the early adopters. We build champions within your team that you don't have to pay a consulting rate to because we're expensive compared to Julie. I'm just going to keep going with the names, but and then we're going to win from the early adopters through to the critical mass. And that's where we go, but really important, safe place to fail, because if we make this go live and introduce people to it at that point, change management's hard.
I think the truth is, if you're an early adopter, you would have been in the
You're using it already.
Microsoft's already run, so we're all in the fast to follow race.
Yes.
And you need to run the race at your own pace.
And you've been using ChatGPT because everyone's using it, but those of us who are nerds were using tools like that for 2 or 3 years. We had automatic chat. We had an online store a few years ago. We were doing about $8 million a year through an online store. There was no humans, it was pure chatbots. So when you jumped on and say, hey, I want to know whether this is compatible with this, bang, the answer would come back. We couldn't have profit margins where we had them if we had humans involved. Subsequently, our customer service was shit and we turned it off because it gave us a really bad name. But the outcome was there in terms of is this compatible? Same as Windows 11. The biggest request we get as an organisation, we sold 15,000 computers last year as a company. The biggest request is, can you please give it to me with Windows 10? Not because it's not better, it's because it's not the same, it's different. Mayo, who's sitting back there with the Lenovo shirt on, we spend a lot of time talking to people about whether it ranges from security. We touched on cyber. Cyber's a massive issue. We could talk about cyber for the next 3 hours and not cover it. But like things like cyber, but general usability improvements, we're not getting what we expect to get when we go for something like Windows 10. If you're an organisation with 2,000 staff, I'll give you a pass. That's going to be hard. If you're an organisation with 50 staff, buckle up, just do it. And again, safe place to fail, early introduction, where's the tech support?
So what about Copilot and Microsoft Power BI?
Yeah, so that, I don't know what we can say about that.
Is it coming as part of the integration?
Well, look, we're working on Copilot across all of our most popular products. We're doing a lot of that stuff in Excel, so yeah, keep an eye on that. Sorry, that's...
Sounds like somebody signed an NDA.
Wow, my whole life is NDAs.
Licensing,
yeah.
Microsoft 365 E5 plus Copilot, separate licenses, add-ons. Is there any plan to have a all-you-can-eat plan with Copilot in it, like an E5?
at the moment, it's an add-on for all of our business M365 plans from standard all the way through to E5. That's all we've got at the moment.
Just on that, if you've got some people in a meeting that have Copilot and others that don't, are there any limitations to the users that do in leveraging technology you showed us today?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at it explicitly because this is all still brand new. But we do have Copilot within Windows 11 to a certain degree. And some of those things will allow you to leverage some of those features. But others, that's probably next time we meet, we'll have a look at that closer, what that looks like. Yeah. But it's a good question.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the data labeling. Do you have any documentation that outlines steps for readiness?
Yeah, so learn.microsoft.com.
Yep.
It is the Bible of every product and everything that we have. So in there, if you look up sensitivity labeling, that's going to give you all the documentation that you need to what it is, how to leverage it, how to set it up. And that's probably your best resources. Yeah, learn.microsoft.com. And that is essentially where all of our documentation lives. So if you want to learn how to do something that, regardless of pretty much what it is, that's exactly where you'll find it. Yeah.
Actually, as someone who's been using the products for a little while and getting the sort of very early adopter view of them, what are you most excited about from actually having used it and actually having experienced it so far?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to a few different aspects, and particularly with, I guess, what my role is within Microsoft. So the first one is the follow of the meetings and having that recap done. I have particularly, being a global company and being part of a global team, there are meetings at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. No way I'm waking up for those. Right? I love my job, but I don't love it that much. You know what I mean? I'd rather be asleep. And so having an ability though to have that recording, or not just that recording, but have something where it breaks down the topics within the meetings automatically. It gives me written notes, concise notes as well, where it gives me action items, and it also says where I've been mentioned. It means that I can recap a meeting in 10 minutes rather than sitting and clicking through it for an hour and missing key things, because I'm not. It's one of those things where I'm sure we've all done it, where I'm not willing to sit down and watch it for an hour, but I'll spend the same amount of time trying to click through and go, oh wait, I missed it, I want to go back and do that, right? So might as well just have watched it. So having those recaps, that for me is a game changer, because it means I just wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is catch up on that, and then I sort of then start processing emails and all of that. And when I say processing emails, that's when the other aspects of it come through and go, well, what's important to me? Because I get updates from Yammer or Viva Engage, I get announcement things, I get newsletters, things, a million different pieces of items. And sometimes it's hard to keep up to date, even if I've got focused in other sort of folders. There are still emails that I miss, and a couple of days later I'll go, oh, right, okay, I probably should have got, or somebody tags me into something and I should have got back to that. So having something that can make those call outs for me of those emails, particularly if you have a very busy inbox, again, a game changer.
I was on stage with Timbo Reid in the front row here in Bundaberg at an event a couple of years ago, and someone in the audience asked about productivity, and I said I've got a rule that I check every email before I go to bed every night. I don't go to bed with emails in my inbox. And Tim hung shit on me in front of the 100 people in the audience, saying, "Well, you must have a great relationship with your wife." But things like that are a game changer, right? Because maybe I will be able to spend time with my kids now.
Yeah, and that's where I think the value of Copilot and the graph, leveraging that intelligence within the organization and what's important to you, goes further than just having a large language model write an email for you. So that is, and that's, so for me, it's not necessarily the generative stuff that I'm getting the most value out of. It's all the other things that take out, like that take over the menial tasks that I really value. And yeah, so, but there are going to be different people that use it differently. Some are going to absolutely love the ability to just write an email. Like, you sit there and you don't know how to phrase an email, but you can go, hey, write me something. And it doesn't, you go, yeah, that's good enough, send it. So you don't have to go through that. Also, like, do I have the tone right? Do I have the thing? Like, it looks after it for you. Now you can modify it and change it and control it, absolutely. It's not just it creates it, sends it, and cross your fingers and hope it's fine. You still have absolute control to edit or iterate that and hit the send button.
On the back of that email with my enthusiast feature to sound like me,
Yeah.
which is something that, have you used that in the experience?
It's only a new thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like similar to how voice assistants learn your voice. It's kind of like how the handwriting feature, the more you use it, the better it understands your scribble, or my scribble. It's pretty bad. I'm left-handed and a guy. And so it learns, so at first it's a bit rough, how's it going? But then the more you use it, the better it understands you and go, oh, okay, yeah, that funny looking thing isn't a 9, it's a 4. And so that sound like me will take time to understand, or will look through your emails and go, what do you typically say? How do you say it? How do you sign it off? And that's where it might not get it perfectly the first time, but it will learn that over time, yeah. And it's so good because it then starts getting a bit scary. Oh, do I say that a lot? Right? Like, I noticed I say, so it's like, just a quick message. I seem to open every email like that. I'm like, well, it's not really, you know, so it's like, yeah, I can, you know, change it up, play around with it as well.
Yeah, that's one thing, because I do a lot of email responses, but you can tell very clearly the way we're using it when it's very much AI generated.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of the, yeah, it becomes, particularly when there are people that know you, maybe the first instance, the first introduction, you just want to keep it stock standard and straight to the point, but maybe when you have those less formal communications, yeah, you sort of want to just have it your way. Do that, yeah.
There was notes that I was taking from when we were first preparing for this,
yeah.
And when people had sworn randomly, and I was just typing word for word, and it was already picking up in the tone, and it would highlight every time, not that I've got the full functionality, but it would highlight every time there was a curse word, and it was like, please be aware your audience maybe just like may take offence to this,
yeah.
And it was prompting me already to remove all the, I remember I changed horse something to something else, like, yeah.
So I think, you know, that's where maybe in Australia the models will be a little bit different, right? Like we like to have professional discourse in a slightly different way to even, I notice, like our American counterparts, like when we sit on global things, meetings with them are drastically different to the ones that we have, like when talking internal ones, right? But the ones with local guys and the ones from overseas, yeah, language and tone is very different.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get back-end analytics on, so as a provider of licensing, we can see what people utilise, what they don't. We can get a score of an organisation's maturity with M365, which if people didn't know that, we can, so that's available. But are we going to expect to see something come through that would be like a Copilot saved you 2 hours and 52 minutes today? Just because obviously measuring ROI is really important.
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to think of what we can publicly say, and versus what I've just seen internally. There will be measures to understand that from an administrative side of what, in how often, how frequently it's been used. Because obviously it's just something you can keep on top of, like, you know, when you're assigning licenses and things like that. Like if somebody never touches it, well, might as well not be paying for it.
Like $50 AU a month, you're talking 2 hours worth of saved productivity over.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like it doesn't take much to actually get the value back. Because even, you know, for me, over a single week, I can save an hour each day going through email, let alone meetings and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of already paid for itself.
Then we need to trick what we write in email so that it gets highlighted at the top of your inbox, right?
Yes.
I think the opportunity cost is actually going to be the greatest loss. It's a competitive advantage.
But by the time you experience the opportunity cost, you're way behind.
Well, depends on your adoption, yeah.
With the users that have already had access to the system for the past period of time, have you got any data from them yet on the potential productivity? I saw with the GitHub Copilot.
Yeah, we don't have data that we're quite ready to share at the moment. We're still kind of like in that tail end of the case study stage with them, because it's part of the reason why we work with those customers in the early access program, right? Is to build, not only just get that feedback of how they're using it, but also to go, well, what are the stories out of that? Can we tell with other customers to show the value for it? So yeah, I would imagine that that's not too far off to actually see deep case studies of that.
With it being rolled out across an enterprise, what sort of control does an individual have within the enterprise? And what I'm thinking of is things like, say, as people have career changes and they leave an organisation, but while they were using Outlook within that enterprise, AI has learned and understood how they speak, how they do everything. But when they leave, someone else might take over that mailbox, and it still could seem like that individual is still working in that organisation, but they're not. So are there ways that, because I can see that sort of consideration could be a potential inhibitor to its successful deployment, like getting the champions involved in your enterprise, and you get your laggards, you get certain people who would say, I don't want to use that feature as part of how I'm using the other features.
Yeah, I think the core part of it is that you have central mailboxes, like you might have a marketing at xyz.com, but in terms of the specific user, we don't really recommend recycling users for that. So it would be, because that profile is part of that individual thing, right? So in those licenses, you can unassign from that user and reassign to the new one. So that's where that goes through, yeah. But so we don't really support that whole, like my email becomes the next person's email. That's
understood, but say in a larger enterprise, you expect a lot more governance around those sorts of things and ethics. But in some organisations, it can become a serious issue. Particularly, you think of some industries that are very competitive, and salespeople move from one organisation to another, and there's a lot of corporate knowledge that is there, but leaving behind your personality in an enterprise could be an issue.
Yeah, but your files are still, like, those files are still the organization's files. It's your personality and the way, like, the sound like me isn't useful to anybody else.
Is that a continually learning function anyway? So if someone else is driving it, it'll change over time.
But again, we don't recommend, like, we don't really support within the TOS to actually have, like, Ashley at XYZ be shared by another Ashley that comes along afterwards. That's where you should be creating a new thing, assigning that license, deassigning and having that. And that's where part of, like, your administrative side of the data management and everything like that, in terms of the files, that's where that file management comes into play outside of that within SharePoint and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's, like, I understand what you're saying, like, absolutely, I agree. But yeah, it's not really something that, like, the files are the files, and the sound like me is very user specific, and it's not useful to anybody else.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
I think that.
Cool.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to head out, grab a coffee. Coffee van's still there. We've got some goodie bags for those of you who are here. Thank you very much for coming. And then, of course, we're going to start doing some of the workshops. So, Sam, I think you'll provide some more instruction maybe while we're around the coffee machine and grab people from there. Big thanks, I guess, to Lenovo as well. Lenovo is actually our licensing partner for Microsoft, so they're not competitors, they're very friendly, they work together. If it weren't for Windows, Lenovo wouldn't have computers to sell. But again, Lenovo did fund today's event, and also, again, massive thanks to the Peregian Digital Hub for having us. It's an absolutely beautiful facility. So head on out, grab a coffee, and we'll chat around there. Thank you.
Some of the things we're talking about
Success.
so they're so it's about